places that I've never been, seeing things that I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the road again.
Connecticut Valley Views recently spoke with Major Michael Downs, Commandant of the 1st Company Governor's Horse Guards in Avon, Connecticut. The company is the oldest continuously active mounted cavalry unit in the United States.
Hello, I'm Susan Reagan, here for Connecticut Valley Views, and we have the pleasure today of being in Avon, Connecticut at the 1st Company Governor's Horse Guard, and it's a pleasure to be here with Major Michael Downs. What a pleasure to be here, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Sure, pleasure to have you.
You have, the Horse Guard is the oldest, I believe, continuous mounted cavalry in the United States. What year did it start?
That's right. Well, legend says that we
Yeah.
started in 1778 during the American Revolution. However, there's really no historical definitive proof of the organization until 1788, which is when it was chartered by the Connecticut General Assembly, and we've been in continuous active service ever since then.
Now, when they started the Horse Guard, what were the original objectives back then?
Back then, it was there was only one, of course, and it was a bunch of Hartford Revolutionary War veterans as well as prominent businessmen who got together to form a mounted honor guard for the governor of the state and for members of the Connecticut General Assembly when they were traveling. Mostly, it was meant to be a ceremonial unit that just acted as a personal guard for the governor.
All right, so it was a little bit of show and pomp and circumstance.
Pretty much,
Pretty
yeah.
much.
And they were dressed in dragoon uniforms and a lot of finery, so it was there was a lot of pomp to it.
Yeah. Now, it was obviously started with only men members.
Correct.
And now you do have women members.
We do, since the 1980s. Actually, it was Governor Grasso who put the hammer down and finally required.
She was really the
that's
one?
That's right. Yes, and she required that the mounted militias admit women, and so women. It took a while for them to actually become members in large numbers, but now in both units they make up at least half of the membership.
Is that right?
That's right.
And do you find that the women put in their fair share? They obviously they have to do the work.
Absolutely. They do everything that the rest of us do. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, right now I'd say we probably are a little bit slanted more towards men right now, but it's very, very close. I think down in the Newtown unit they have more women than they have men.
Now, when someone's attracted to doing this, to joining the Horse Guard, is it through a friend? Is it a desire because they like horses? What do you think seems to be when your recruits come in and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this?
That's
driving factor.
It's one of the greatest things I think about this unit. I mean, we're all volunteers. We all have jobs during our normal course of life, and we all come from an incredibly diverse background. We have people who are here who are lawyers, police officers, teachers, and maybe in the course of life they wouldn't ordinarily get to know each other or work alongside each other. And that's one of the great things about this unit, is that it brings people from all those backgrounds together to work for a common purpose. And I think the reasons for people joining are probably just as varied as the people themselves.
So everyone starts as a private, is that correct?
Everybody starts off as a recruit, and we have 16 weeks of recruit training.
Okay.
They go from March until they graduate at our annual training exercises, which are ordinarily held at Camp Niantic, the National Guard base in Niantic. And during that course of period, we train everybody. And of course, we take people in who have all sorts of backgrounds. Some of them have horse background, some of them don't. Some of them have prior military, some of them don't. I've actually found, you may not like this,
yes,
but I have found that the people who don't have a horse background are easier to train, because we're not unbreaking all the habits that they have in some respects, because we have to break down those habits that they have to make sure that they do everything according to our numbers. But it's a rigorous process, 16 weeks. They come up here every Thursday night, every Sunday during the day. They get their military D&C training on the Thursdays, and they get their military equitation training on Sundays.
Now, when they come on board, do you have dropouts?
Oh yeah.
Okay. What would you give me a percentage? You start out with 15 people, and
I would say 20% ordinarily is pretty.
Right.
You can expect that, sometimes more.
Is it the horse, because of the horse thing?
Sometimes it isn't. We do our best to make sure that everybody understands the commitment that they're getting into, and it is a significant commitment. Some people come in with the mistaken apprehension that it's going to be just a little hobby that they can take up and do on the side.
Once a week.
Really, it's a life-changing culture that you become a part of.
Now, let's go back, because originally you said it was basically pomp and circumstance. Now, let's bring us current now.
Sure. Well, there's a lot in between there, obviously.
You've got a couple
but-
of programs I know that
Right.
you have going, that special
Sure.
programs, but now, under what circumstances, what emergency or what situation might the group be called on?
Sure.
For?
Well, first I would back up maybe a little bit just
Mm-hmm.
in the history that the Governor's Horse Guard was the independent voluntary group until 1911, which is when they became part of the Connecticut National Guard. The troop
Okay.
voted to become part of it and became Troop B, Connecticut National Guard Cavalry.
Mm-hmm.
After that, they were mobilized and federalized for service 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
One was in World War I, one was in World War II, one was the hunt for Pancho Villa down on the border
Mm-hmm.
of Mexico in 1916. So the troop has been mobilized in a military capacity in the past. After World War II, the troop ended up reverting back to the 1st Company Governor's Horse Guard. It was deployed under different names when it was
Okay.
federalized. Since then, it had reverted to a more ceremonial role, and we'd participate in, obviously, Veterans Day parades, memorial
Go to Washington.
parades, the Washington inaugurals for numerous presidents.
Right.
And right now, what we have is, especially with the budget crisis that the state is facing. When I took command about 3 years ago, it was important for me to have a greater return on investment for the state taxpayers for what they get out of us. And the concept is out there that we're just a ceremonial unit, and there's so much more that we offer and that we do.
Yeah, is this an unnecessary necessity here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I immediately embarked the troop on was certification in mounted search and rescue, and that was a long process. It took about 2 years to complete the training. I had 19 troopers and 11 horses that passed the certification. The training involved over 200 man-hours of training. It was land navigation. It was crime scene preservation, first aid certification and CPR, large animal first aid and CPR, search management, and it was fundamentals of search and rescue. These, some of these classes that we took were 3-day weekends.
Yeah,
where
it's a
the
pretty
troopers had to do
aggressive
it.
program.
All volunteer. Nobody, the state didn't pay a dime for any of that.
Wow.
These troopers, in fact, we all paid our own money to achieve
Pretty
our own
entrepreneurial on
certifications.
your part, then.
Sure. And what we wanted to do was, in the end, have a group that could be called out. Mounted search and rescue is a vital thing for, especially, you don't think of Connecticut
Missing
as
children and
sure.
things. And
You don't necessarily think of
people
Connecticut as a
downplaying
wilderness
the-
state,
right.
but it's one of the most densely wooded areas, and in those circumstances, a mounted search and rescue effort has advantages over other kinds of search. On foot or mechanized vehicles, you can go through terrain that you wouldn't be able to. You
Of
have
course.
a higher vantage point. You have higher visibility for somebody who's missing. So, being able to properly train for it, and I would mention that the troop had been called out for those things in the past, but there had never been any certification or
Right.
we trained to a higher level so that when we were called out to do this, our people
You were
actually knew
actually
what they
capable.
were doing.
Right, capable. of
And
doing
knew how the incident command response works. They know how that framework works. They also took FEMA courses as part of this so that they understand the command and control for when they go out and do these things.
it. Now, have you been involved in?
We haven't yet. Well, our certification, we graduated in May
Mm-hmm.
from the entire program, and right now we're working on developing a memorandum of understanding between the Capital Region so that we can be deployed as part of ESF 9, which of course is search and rescue,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can be called out. Now, we would be the only, in fact, Region 3, which is what Capital Region is the only one that has an ESF 9. So all of the other regions would be able to borrow off of that, and so theoretically we would be able to be deployed for something like that statewide.
Would it ever be perhaps utilizing dogs as well? Would they bring in their canine
Well, it's
units
interesting that
with
you mention
on
that
the
because
horses?
the primary people who trained us were Connecticut Canine Search and Rescue. And so we learned a lot of what we learned from people who were working with dogs
Right.
and learned how they work. Generally, you would want to keep those units separated in a certain respect, but we're planning on doing a number of training exercises working right alongside of them, probably starting this coming year.
Oh, great. Well, fantastic. All right. Well, having said that, you talked about this entrepreneurial thing and the fact that you raised your own funds and didn't cost the state anything. But now,
Right.
in turn, however, the state obviously has been grappling with the budget issues going
Sure.
forward. How's that impacted yours and the second governor's horse guard?
It's impacted both units significantly. When the onset of the financial difficulties arose, I remember when I started here we had 40 horses.
Wow.
And we've sort of steadily declined since then. I last year had 22 authorized horses. We've consistently had our budgets cut. But also, the commandant of the second company and I worked hard with the state to develop cost-saving approaches because we understand the situation and we want to be part of the solution too, where we get it.
Right.
So, we were willing to make certain reductions to try to look for those ways to save money in certain areas, and we found a significant amount of savings for both units. However, now we're at a point where we came into this year where we did have a proposal that was put forth in the governor's budget to consolidate both units into one. That ended up not being what they went with. The General Assembly actually passed a budget, and the governor signed one that flat funded us at $79,000 per year. But however, after that and the issues with the concessions with the union, the governor went back and did an agency holdback. So what he did was he directed a $101,000 cut just for fiscal year 12 across both units.
Okay.
So it's over $50,000 cut. So each one of us had our budgets cut 2/3.
2/3. Okay.
So as a result, I'm now down to 10 authorized horses. We adopted out a number of the mounts that we had here, and that's of course tough too.
So how many members do you have totally?
I have 40.
40.
Right now.
So how do you utilize the 10 horses with the 40 members? Is that a
That's
rotating
part of the trick
thing?
right now. Yeah, we're still kind of working on that a little bit, but when we come here, we try to maximize the training opportunities for every trooper who comes here. They volunteer their Thursday night, they come out here, and we want to make sure they get the most out of it. We do rotate in some dismounted training on different disciplines so that they come here and they get a little bit more other than just the mounted, and we'll take our troopers out there and rotate them on horses sometimes, so somebody will be mounted half of the night and then dismounted learning something else or working on or observing something else. I mean, we used to have a full platoon mounted out there. The minimum I need for a platoon mounted is 22 horses, and now I have 10. That's just a little more than a squad.
But you're working with it, and everybody's getting at least a fair share.
Yeah, we're doing what we can with that. Also, this year, what we did is, and it was just approved this past week. Our nonprofit organization is contributing $10,000 now just to the operational costs for the Horse Guard, and the operational costs that I'm talking about include the vet farrier feed hay for the horses. So
do you ever get any
put up
donations
10,000
from the vets? Do the vets or anybody? Does anybody do sort of pro bono stuff, or is everything on?
Well, our veterinarian is on contract, so we don't.
Whenever
get,
you need him, he comes. And
he does, yeah. And he's a great guy. He actually put on a little lecture for us on Thursday night, just about healthcare, and he's pretty good about that stuff. Comes out and teaches people. So.
Well, let's just say this for our folks out here and our viewers: donations can be made. We will give the website in our closing. But donations can be made, any amounts can be made, and can people donate it for a specific thing, or are you looking to put it into a general fund? I mean, if you say, I want this to feed the horses, or buy new tack.
Yeah, we have a nonprofit organization. It's the Friends of the First Company Governor's Horse Guard. And that nonprofit contributes money towards the support of the organization in a variety of ways. A lot of the things that we have here, the state doesn't pay for. Uniforms, tack, equipment, all that. That's paid for out of the private resources that the troop has. Okay. So those funds go towards that. They go towards, and now, because of this new agreement, it's actually going to the upkeep of the horses. To make a contribution, we'll certainly take one in any amount, and we certainly appreciate that. You can access, right on our website, ctfirsthorse.org. You can go in there and there's a donation button. You can actually make a donation online if you wanted, or you can go there and get the information to donate, send a check, or something.
Okay,
that'd be great.
well, excellent.
On the road again, going places that I've never been, seeing things that I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the road again.